welcome back to my second episode where you hear me ranting and venting about my emotions and my thoughts that is very personal to me. Yeah, so today is the 12th day of my quarantine, and I will be checking out on 10th of August, and I have my second PCR swab test tomorrow at 2:30. So if it's negative, then I'll be able to end my stay home notice, and I'll be able to go out there to the public and start my job and everything. Yeah, so I decided, okay, let's talk and discuss about my trip to Malaysia and how I travel during this COVID pandemic. So, the last I went back home was January 2020. Yeah, that was a year and a half ago where I went back, and it was, if you remember, 2019 was the best year that we could remember. 2020 onwards, Feb, March onwards, it went downhill because of the COVID pandemic. So at that point of time, when I returned back to Singapore, I had no idea that my next return would be a question mark, because I am the type of girl who thinks that I have everything figured out, and I have plans. I think to the future. I have everything, it's a very systematic way that I plan and live my life. So I had no idea, because we were planning for my parents to come over to Singapore in April 2020, and that got cancelled because lockdown happened, and that's when we started all wearing masks. It became compulsory. Ouch, I've got long nails. Yeah, so that thought, when uncertainty hits you, when you had planned out everything, when you think that you have figured out everything, and suddenly God or the nature puts a full stop or puts a big question mark, you go crazy, because some people are not wired to function that way. Some people just go with the flow, but some people have a system planned out. And so when that happened, I didn't know how to handle it. I was depressed, and I needed to know the answers then immediately what's going to happen. And I tried searching high and low. I couldn't find any answers to any of my questions, and it was so frustrating. And fast forward 2021, where there was Singapore and Malaysia had this compassionate traveling. They had this RGL. They have this family ties lane. They started arranging different types of travel lanes to accommodate working adults or students, between these two countries. And even then, to be traveling all by myself, because the rules were changing. Early 2021, the rules were changing. If this month they say that, okay, you need a letter of undertaking, LOU, to enter to Malaysia, next month you don't need it. And then there will become this rule that, okay, you have to take one swab test, and then bam, there's another rule that you have to take 2 swab tests during your quarantine. The rules were ever changing, and that made someone like me very anxious, because what if I get stuck because I'm all by myself? What if something goes wrong? Am I able to handle it? And that thought was worrying me for the longest, for weeks, for months. I was worrying, what if, and the rules were changing and changing. Okay, let's say, because if I'm traveling On a normal day when there's no pandemic, I would plan like 6 months ahead, even 1 year ahead, or 2 months ahead maximum. But this one, although I started planning for it early, and I read up on the rules, I read up on the requirements and the criteria, it kept changing and changing and changing, and I couldn't plan anything until the very last minute, because every government authority is saying that, oh, you can't apply now, you can't do this now, because 2 weeks later the rules might change. So somewhat I managed to surpass, and the anxiety was there until the day I checked in. So I prepared all my documents. I went for a pre-departure swab test 72 hours before my flight. I was still feeling worried, and what if what if it's positive? What if they stop me in the airport? What if this is not recognized? What if? A girl like me has so many questions, yeah. Until I checked into the hotel successfully, I was not at peace at all. Yeah, I think what makes it easier is when you have someone traveling with you, when you have a companion, you get to share your worries, you get to share your questions, you get to like research together, and you have each other's back. That was something lacking, but now I somewhat have gained the confidence to travel in a pandemic all by myself. I've done it once. It was thrilling and I loved it. I have no regrets. Quarantine part in Malaysia, because I wanted to surprise my family. I had no transportation plans fixed yet, because from the hotel back to home I had no idea how am I going to be traveling, given that my house is a guarded compound, a guarded area where you need like you cannot enter by surprise to my house. You need my mother's permission. The security guard needs to get a permission. So until the last day, and finally I got my brother to help me in my surprise plan, and the surprise turned out well. I spent about 3 weeks with my family, although it was EMCO back in Malaysia. I did get to meet close family members like my cousins and my grandparents, and I was very, very thankful. You have no idea how important this trip was for me, because I needed it to live life, because I was at the point of time where I do not know what makes me happy anymore. Like, why am I always constantly sad? Like, what is lacking? And I guess this trip needed to happen in my life, to for me to be able to like look at life in another perspective. So I am very thankful to 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 God for allowing this to happen in midst of so many daily rising cases. It wasn't easy, it wasn't cheap, and everyone, when I post on social media, they say, oh, I'm jealous you got to go back, but it wasn't easy. Mentally, physically, it takes a lot of time. And what happened in my personal life within this 1.5 months is something that only I know, the struggles, and to be able to handle such an expensive amount, to just go back to Malaysia from Singapore was insane. You have to save up so much for, not just a month, for months you have to save up to be able to comfortably travel and spend time with your family. It wasn't easy. The money doesn't grow on trees, and I told everyone that after this trip that I'm broke, but I decided to do it. Like, if you needed it, you have to, right? So it did help me emotionally. And I've spent so much, and it's hard for me, but I've learned to accept that money can be earned anytime. And yeah, so even returning from Malaysia, it was a chaos because you know and that My Sejatra app is an application used to check in when you enter different premises. When you on your hotspot tracker, you can actually see within 1 kilometer how radius how many COVID positive cases are you in the middle of, and saying that sometimes it's 100, sometimes it's 200, sometimes it's 40, sometimes it's 72. When I go to different places, it's like you are on a hot seat, and you just don't want Singapore to ban Malaysians or travelers from Malaysia entering Singapore, because at that time Singapore has already banned India and Indonesia from entering the country, and I have to get back to work, right? And so you don't want that to happen, because in the name of lockdown, Malaysia's case never reduced, right? From the day one that I started planning, it was like 8,000, 7,000 cases, all the way when the day of travel happened, it was 14,000 cases, and throughout my stay, it was 17,000, 16,000, 18,000, 19,000. The lockdown was utterly useless. I am so sorry for my opinion. I just think that you got to do a very, very strict lockdown for a month, and then you can see changes, right? What is the point of calling it